Hello and welcome to another episode of Full Throttle here on Unprecedented TV. Today we've got one of our News Digest items that we like to do from time to time. And I'm here with Policy Director Brian Gregory, my good friend, who will explain to us a little bit more about what the News Digest is. And also, we've had some exciting times today, haven't we? And yesterday, trying to get this show out. Technology has been the bane.
Indeed, and currently I operate in jury-rigged from my phone because my computer and various browsers have all decided that they want to operate at the speed of arthritic snails. So we're stuck with the phone connection, which seems to actually work in almost real time. Yeah. Whereas any of the other connections seem to work on Venusian station time. So the transit of messages backwards and forwards was minutes instead of split seconds. Anyway, we're operating with this jury-rigged situation, and the digest, which Paul's already mentioned, basically is a compendium of all the news items over the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, compressed into a document which contains a brief explanation of what the item is and the internet reference, the URL, unique reference, whatever it is, that takes you to that web page. So we'll crack on. It's an 11-page digest. We won't look at every item because we would still be here at 7 o'clock this evening if we did that. But we'll focus on some of the more important ones from the top on page 1.
Okay. So
the very top one is we were never asked to save the planet, and apparently it's a sort of what's the word? A reformed suffer from CADS, climate alarmism derangement syndrome. And this is somebody who had drunk the Kool-Aid in copious quantities, but then suddenly had a Damascene moment when they started looking at the evidence and realized it's all junk science. Yeah. And the comment is, I no longer saw nature perpetually on the brink of collapse, waiting for humans to either rescue it or ruin it. Instead, I began to notice extraordinary systems that had been working long before humans arrived. Well spotted. Okay, so that was the first one. The next ones, as you know, apparently the whole of the developed world is now being consumed by wildfires, allegedly. And there's this guy called Greg Jackson on the Telegraph saying, oh, wildfires, it's all down to, we're all doomed, climate change. Well, actually it isn't, because the area is being currently under, oh, sorry, Paul, yes?
Yeah, I was going to say, hello, sir. I know the answer. I know the answer. This is down to idiots going out there and setting fires. That's what this is about. It's not nature.
Well, it's a large part. The problem is that they keep saying that climate change is causing more wildfires. Well, it isn't, because the ignition temperature of even paper is, well, there's a film, Fahrenheit 451. That was the film. But it wasn't about climate change. It was about destroying knowledge, which is, of course, what our enemies are trying to do. And they are now stripping the covers off books, feeding them into the internet, and then destroying the books. But that's an aside. Anyway, yes. So paper ignites at about 230 degrees Celsius if you do the conversion. Well, 40, 50, even 60 degrees Celsius, you've still got a huge gap before you get anywhere near paper igniting. And wood's even higher. It's between 300 and 400 Celsius, depending on the wood, how much moisture it's got on it, in it, and things like that. Okay. So there's no way that climate change is causing more wildfires. The problem is when you get to the bottom of wildfires, there has to be an ignition source. Very occasionally, it's things like lightning. But most of the time, it's due to human activity, either accidental or deliberate. So the fires are either because somebody chucks a cigarette butt away while it's still smouldering into a source that will ignite, or into a piece of brush or whatever, or else they've actually doused the place with petrol and set light to it. So
do you think could it be possible that it could be from like a discarded piece of glass? Because we've all experienced.
Well, that's another possibility. But again, somebody who's human has put that in a place where it can concentrate sunlight. So it's human activities that are causing more wildfires. Oh, there are two other things. The first thing is poor forest management, because what's happened in recent years is that this rewilding thing, when you just let nature run riot, well, actually, you need to put in fire breaks, artificial fire breaks, so that is stopped. But what is happening is the whole forest area now is being choked up with bits and pieces of wood that haven't been cleared, and they're an ideal ignition source for wildfires. So we need better forest management, and we also need better water management, so that if there are fires, we've got the water to actually douse them. And if the forests are better managed, then they don't set on fire. Where they do set on fire, it's contained because it's been fire broken by channels that have been put in by humans to stop it from turning into a localized thing into a wider problem. So all this talk about climate change causing wildfires is utter nonsense. Okay.
Absolutely.
And there are a few responses to this guy, Tim Stanley, in the Telegraph. One of which was that basically saying that climate change is real, which none of us are disputing, but the major influences are not clear. We still don't know what are the major causes of climate, or, well, a lot of scientists know that it's a very complex thing, and carbon dioxide is not even at the race because it follows from the temperature changes rather than the way around the IPCC wants to present it. But ultimately, renewables are useless because they're reliably unreliable. When we have periods in the winter of what's called Dunkelflaute by the Germans, which means very high pressure, low wind, and of course in winter low sunlight, renewables deliver virtually no energy, so you have to have conventional backup. And what we should have is conventional nuclear, and thorium apparently is coming back into the picture now, because the beauty of thorium is that you can generate almost endless amounts of electricity using thorium. It can't go critical because of the design of the reactors. And you could give this to nations like Iran to actually produce energy, but not be able to produce nuclear weapons.
So why hasn't this been used sooner?
Because the powers that be did not want a source of nuclear energy that didn't produce fissionable products. They wanted to be able to produce nuclear weapon technology from the reactors. Thorium was always a better bet, but it was never at the races in terms of generating fissionable, weaponizable nuclear power.
That sounds like an opportunity that's really been missed. Just think where we'd have been by now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I first moved to the Northeast with the company I used to work for, we were in the process of buying a house in a village called Kirklevington, which is not that far away from where we live now, but it's south of where we currently live, just outside of Yarm, which is quite a pleasant village. And we almost got to the stage of buying this house. The guy was moving down to Knutsford to work on fast breeder technology and thorium in Knutsford. And then the government decided didn't want to move to that, the people to that area, and didn't want to proceed with those technology advances. So everything was thrown into reverse. We have to buy a different house. But we were at the position of having a lead in this area in those days, and we threw it away.
So that's back on the table again now.
Yes, yeah, and certainly from the point of view of those that want cheap energy, cheap and reliable, dispatchable energy, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it's the way forward. But clearly for static consuming locations, because you can't put one of these reactors on the back of a car and drive it away. It's a bit bigger than that. So still for mobile sort of energy consuming not sources, but users. So basically, transport, you still need hydrocarbons because they're the most reliable, high energy density system for transport. That doesn't have all the deficiencies of short range, battery weight, all the rest of it that battery electric vehicles do. So we should still be able to use hydrocarbons in this area where the most efficient source that we're currently aware of.
And is thorium, is that an abundant element? Is it
much more abundant? Yes, there's about 50 times as much thorium in the Earth's crust as there is any of the uranium isotopes that we currently use, 235, 238.
Is it found anywhere in particular in the world, or is
no? It's found almost all over the world, whereas uranium is much more regionally distributed.
That's it. Yeah.
So
it can't be politicized as much then, can it?
No.
Because if everybody's got access to it, then there's no fighting over it.
Yeah, and of course the Chinese have got a lead on this now. They have produced a thorium reactor that creates almost endless power from the thorium that's mined, surprisingly in China, and it can produce huge amounts of energy. Because obviously thorium is much more energy dense even than hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
But it's a great technology. We put it on the shelf. We should be using it because it's much less dangerous than uranium, and we should be exploiting it.
I think we ought to do a PR on this, Brian. I think we ought to bring this out into the open, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we can provide the references. There's loads of internet references to what China's been doing with thorium.
Yeah.
And of course, ourselves and the Americans are now playing catch up on technology that we knew all about, and basically the politicians told us to just sideline it because it's no good for making weapons. Another area where bloody politicians make extremely poor decisions. I'll just describe them as extremely poor is the word I was going to use. Probably not repeatable before the watershed.
Just tune in past 9 o'clock, everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. And the next thing I wanted to come to is while everybody's stressing themselves about these very high temperatures in Western Europe specifically, Greenland has got a surface mass balance, which is like the amount of ice and snow and stuff that's actually growing. There's been no summer in Greenland, or certainly above 80 degrees north. There's been no detectable summer because currently the temperature there is still below zero when it should be above zero now in the summer months. And it's 10 straight days below minus 100 Fahrenheit. I mean, that is pretty blooming cold, certainly going to cool your biryani, that's for sure. So regionally, yes, because of what's called the meridional jet stream, we're stuck in a hot pocket, but there's large areas of the globe suffering much lower than average temperatures, and the mainstream media are just not reporting on any of this. All they're reporting on is this sort of not fantasize. What's the word I'm looking for?
Fictitious or
no.
Fantasized.
Well, yeah, but fantasized, but catastrophized picture of the European climate, but ignoring the global climate, which is going in the opposite direction. It's going. Temperatures are going down.
So what's that? Minus 100 Fahrenheit. What's that in centigrade about?
Well,
minus 70.
Well, you have to say minus 70 and half it.
You'd need a coat, wouldn't you?
Minus 35 Celsius or something like that.
Yeah.
35.
You'll need your big coat. Yeah.
You will need your big coat, absolutely, and best put on a balaclava or something, because otherwise you get frostbite fairly quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
And bits will drop off, and that's never good.
No. No, he's speaking from experience here, folks. No.
Yeah. And in that same reference, the 10 days below 100 Fahrenheit and Greenland, apparently now the Inuits and other of the peoples living in the Arctic area are demanding polar bear culls because there are too many of them. They're getting too close to humans. There's been a number of incidents where people have been savaged or killed and eaten by polar bears. So all this stuff about them going extinct is complete and utter rubbish. And anybody who wants to check that should look up Susan Crockford. Just Google Susan Crockford, who's been working on this subject for many years. The polar bear population is thriving. It is not declining. And it's getting to the point where it's so large that polar bears are now a threat to humanity in the higher latitudes.
Because there's a scarcity of food amongst them, so they're coming looking for it elsewhere.
And because it's easier to raid bins than it is to catch fish and seals.
Yeah,
it's a bit like the seagull thing, you know. They're becoming as much of a problem to humanity as seagulls are.
The amount of pasties and...
but exactly. Yeah, polar bear with a taste for pasties.
Yeah,
and there's another reference there, basically saying because all of the arguments, the Holocene was a very Susan Crockford, yes, brilliant.
Yeah,
visit that website if you think polar bears are going extinct, and when you've read it, you'll be thinking again.
Interesting.
And there's another reference there to the Holocene, which is the warm period that we had 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, confirming that the Holocene warm period was global. It wasn't confined to just Northern Europe, as the climate crazies tried to suggest. It was a global phenomenon, and you can find the evidence if you want to go looking for it.
Our producer chipped in suggesting that there was a conspiracy that polar bears are actually just a bloke in a suit, but then swiftly corrected herself. Swiftly corrected herself. No, that's Landers.
Been watching what was that advert with the polar bears? With the bears in.
No, there was the Kit Kat one with the pandas. In the background, wasn't there? And,
yes, there was. Yeah.
That was definitely.
Anyway, moving swiftly on. One of the great climate realists is a guy called Willie Soon, S-O-O-N, and if you Google him, you can find him and find all the papers he's written. He and another guy called Keston Green have looked at the infamous IPCC climate models, which we've had a go at a number of times because the climate models all massively overestimate the amount of warming that CO2, atmospheric carbon dioxide, can generate. And basically what Willie Soon and Keston Green have found that all of the IPCC climate models lack predictive validity and cannot guide policy, which is what John Christie has been saying for ages. Because as I said, the slope of all of the climate models is like that, and the slope of actual observations is like that. Right. So what we've seen is, or what we're still seeing, is a temperature rise of roughly 1.4 degrees Celsius a century, right? And the climate models are predicting at least 3 times that. And a lot of them were based on something called RCP 8.5, which is representative concentration path, talking about carbon dioxide. 8.5, which was basically everybody was burning coal, until it was coming out their ears, and a trajectory which is completely unrealistic. And even the IPCC have admitted now that is never going to happen, and they've revised all of their models down quite dramatically back in line, or more in line, not in line, but more in line with what the observations are saying. And basically, Willie Soon and Keston Green have confirmed that IPCC should have been put out of its misery before it was even born.
And yet people are still listening to this stuff.
Absolutely, because it's still in all of the mainstream media, still paddling stuff. And the problem is politicians and local authorities are setting policies based on this RCP 8.5 climate crisis twaddle. And still trying to implement policies. There is no climate crisis. I'll say it again slowly. There is no climate crisis. We have a slight temperature rise, which has happened between the 1750s and now. 1750s was one of the coldest periods in the last 10,000 years, by the way, but so if the temperature is not going up from one of the coldest periods that we've experienced in recent history, then that is bad news, because if the temperature is going down from there, we're looking at a full-on ice age, which nobody in the right mind wants.
Nobody wants that. No. Now, we've discussed this before, Brian, so we are still emerging from a previous ice age, aren't we?
Yes,
so
we are, yes.
What do you expect in terms of temperature increases over the coming years then? Do you think it's going to continue to increase, or are we going to have similar summers to what we've had this year?
That is not impossible, because, as I said, we're in what's called a meridional jet stream. Now, normally the jet stream runs like a smooth cap around the Arctic area and keeps the cold air inside. But what happens when solar activity weakens and we get more cosmic ray incidents is that flow buckles, goes wavy. And when that happens, you get areas of hot air that move up much further north than they would normally go. And equally, in the downswings, cold area seeps much further down south than it normally would. So you get things like we've got currently the heat dome, and then we've got the other areas that they're not mentioning, that the United States and Soviet Russia is experiencing significantly colder than normal temperatures for them at this time of year, but mainstream media are not reporting it. So the big question now is, are we coming to the end of this warming phase, in which case we are likely to go into what's called a grand, what would drive this is what's called a grand solar minimum. And this is when solar activity peaks and then starts to drop back down again. And of course, when that happens, less of the sun's energy reaches the earth and temperatures fall. And then following that, Henry's law applies. And basically Henry's law says that the solubility of a gas in a liquid goes up as the temperature goes down. So as the temperature changes and drops, the solubility of carbon dioxide in the Earth's oceans increases. So carbon dioxide get pulled out of the atmosphere into the oceans. And at any one time, there's always about 50 times as much carbon dioxide dissolved in the ocean as there is in the atmosphere. That's the partition coefficient between the ocean. So if that happens, that is bad news, because carbon dioxide is being sucked back out of the atmosphere and into the ocean, and that's bad for plants and bad for growth and bad for crop yields. And of course, we get less solar activity, so there's less photosynthesis going on, and plants struggle even more. So that's a really bad combination. The last thing we should be doing when we're sitting at what could be at the peak of current solar activity is to start trying to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, when there's a risk that nature will start doing it on its own anyway. And of course, what is government planning to do now? Investigate technology to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. There's an old saying, when you're in a hole, stop digging. So that's where we are, and there are some quite notable physicists, particularly ladies like Valentina Zarkova, who's based at the University of Northumberland, and one of the top Russian astrophysicists, a guy called Habibullah Abdusamatov, who are basically saying they think we're at peak solar activity now, and things that are probably going that way. And the other thing that supports that is what has been happening as we've reached peak solar activity is that global cloud cover levels have come down. And if cloud cover comes down, of course, more of the energy that comes from the sun gets absorbed by the land and by the oceans. So the oceans and land get warmer and the temperature goes up. And you can see that. You can see that if you look at graphs of cloud cover over the last 40, 50 years or so, and compare it with graphs of average temperature, that's exactly what happens. Cloud cover's gone down, average temperatures have gone up. Right. So that's one of the other factors that IPCC doesn't even consider in its models. Makes no attempt to cover cloud cover changes, and it assumes cloud cover has been homogeneous over the last 50 years, and it hasn't. It's been gradually increasing. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving slowly on, which not as swiftly as we maybe should do. We're still only on page 2, so maybe I'll cut through those. Only to say there's a guy called Roger Pielke, who is what I would call an enlightened warmist. He believes that climate change is a problem. He believes that carbon dioxide could be a problem, but he's also a realist, and he looks at data to try to confirm whether he's right or wrong. And I would advise anybody to go and look at his Substack, Roger Pielke Jr. jr.substack.com. It's full of useful information. I don't agree with all of it, but he presents a realistic, warmist take, if you like on what's happening, backed by a lot of sound science as well. So
how do you spell Pielke?
Pielke. So his Substack is Roger, Roger, Pielkejr.substack.com. Yes, the honest broker is his nickname, and he's been involved in climate change or climate science for a long time. And as I say, he still believes climate change is or could be a problem, but he's more of a realist and prepared to accept sensible information and information that can be validated when it's presented.
Yeah. Great.
Under that reference, there's also one basically saying from the CO2 Coalition. That's another good website to visit. CO2 numeral coalition coalition.substack.com. A lot of useful information on that site as well on climate change and carbon dioxide. Basically, this reference says that dust storms, the increases are not due to climate change, but they're due to complex factors in the Sahara-Sahel region, and it's got the data backing that up. And underneath it, there's another reference basically saying that currently the Andes is under 16.4 feet of snow as temperatures hit -27, which is like the -80 Fahrenheit we were talking about earlier. Oh, -100 Fahrenheit it is, yeah. So more information there. Moving on as quickly as I can. All of this stuff around the excess deaths this summer because of the extreme heat.
Yeah.
Nobody's pointing out that there's 10 times as many people die in winters because of extreme cold. So that if there's more people dying because of extreme heat in the summer, but it also means a warmer winter, that means less people are dying in the winter, more than compensating for the ones that are dying of extreme heat.
Yeah.
Nobody is mentioning that. And in fact, I think they've actually stopped measuring deaths due to the cold now, because it doesn't support the climate crisis narrative.
Yeah, you're more likely to slip over on ice in the winter. Let's just say that.
Yes, well, there's other factors as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't afford to heat your home. Hypothermia is a much bigger problem than extreme heat.
Yeah.
There's a really good net zero skit on a website, x.com /moredge MOREDGE_insight /status. It really is worth watching. You can find it on the internet. It's the fight for net zero in the UK. And it refers to Officer Longcock and the solar submarine, which is really funny because the reporter's standing on the deck of the submarine with this guy, Officer Longcock, and he says, "We're standing on the only solar-powered submarine in the world. We have to surface every 15 minutes for a day to recharge the battery." absolutely stonking. It is one of the funniest
somewhat
things.
ill-conceived. Yeah.
Tonight we're going to be investigating net zero, a bold government plan that aims to save the planet by drastically cutting carbon emissions. But do the British public believe in a cleaner, greener future? Or is it just another crazy idea destined for failure? We sent our reporters around the country to find out more. What do you think of net zero and the government's energy policy, sir?
It's a load of bollocks, that's what I think.
Any thoughts on net zero?
It's so important if we want to save the planet, and if my granny has got to freeze to death because she can't afford to put the heating on, then so be it. I'm currently joined by Officer Longcock, and I believe what we're standing on now is the newest submarine to join the Royal Navy fleet. Can you tell me what's so special about it?
HMS Sunshine is the world's first solar-powered submarine. It cost £400 billion to develop, and it really is one of a kind.
Have you encountered any problems with it yet?
Well, obviously the solar panels don't work underwater, and we can only store enough power to keep us moving for 15 minutes at a time. So, unfortunately, we do have to keep resurfacing for a minimum of 24 hours to recharge the batteries, which isn't exactly ideal.
I've now been joined by Ted Willihan, who is Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero.
Hi, Jenna, and a big hello to all the peasants watching at home.
Ted, is it true you want to replace all the farmland and cows behind us and fill all this area with large solar farms instead?
Farming isn't good for the environment, and cows cause too much pollution with their farts, so solar farms are the answer.
What do British farmers think of this?
Farmers fully support me, and they think I'm doing a great job. Solar is the future of farmland. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. to milk a solar panel.
Willie Hand, you wanker! Get off my land!
How do you feel about Britain having the highest energy bills in the world?
It's ridiculous. It's that bad. I've started sleeping with my husband again just to warm me up for 2 minutes.
Thoughts on net zero?
It's not good. No meat, no dairy, no holidays and no money. They should just reopen the coal mines and stop worrying about windmills and cow farts.
Ted, I think that farmer spoke for everyone in Britain right now who are struggling to afford their energy bills. What do you say to those people?
If I was them, I'd just get a higher paying job. For example, if you're earning minimum wage, just get a job on £50 an hour instead, and that will make bills much more affordable.
But why are energy prices going up?
Well, that's just not true. If you look at this chart here, you can see energy prices are actually going down.
I'm pretty sure that graph is upside down, Ted.
Oh, yes, it is. My mistake. Well spotted.
What about pensioners who can't work? We heard a story last week about an 80-year-old woman who was wearing 3 jumpers and 2 coats and was still cold. What do you say to her, Mr. Willihan?
I would suggest that maybe she should consider wearing 4 jumpers and 3 coats instead. Either that, or perhaps she could just visit Benidorm for a few months during winter.
I think that farmer was right, Ted. You really are a wanker, aren't you? Anyway, it's time to check back in with our reporters out on the streets.
Do you agree with net zero? No, I honestly don't give a shit about all that stuff. Bring on global warming. I think I speak for everyone when I say this country could do with being a bit hotter.
Is there any reason you haven't bought an electric car yet, sir?
Yeah, do you see that block of flats behind us? I live on the top floor. I'm going to need a bloody long charger, aren't I?
Would I be right in assuming you've got an electric car, Mr. Willihan?
No, I don't want one. I prefer my Range Rover, to be honest.
Oh, OK. Have you considered possibly planting more trees to offset carbon emissions?
Yes, I did consider it, as it could work, but it's very difficult to profit from it.
Right, then I think we've covered everything now. Let's wrap this up. I've been Generator, and this prick has been Ted Willihan. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Our new ultra left-wing Prime Minister is going to target all aspects of driving through higher taxes and through limiting the freedom to drive. We're already seeing that with councils coming up with crazy ideas to differentially charge diesel vehicles and SUVs, everything to empty motorists' pockets, really, based on spurious or unsound evidence that really we should challenge them on in terms of, actually obtaining money under false pretenses. And I think we should actually look at crowd funding a legal challenge of that sort against the most egregious of these kind of claims. What else? Oh yes, I mentioned there's a reference on page 5 to Labour's maddest net zero project yet, exploring the plan to strip carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's reported in the Telegraph business section, and it's the whole reference is on the digest here, but it's too long to read out.
Brian, we're at the end of the month, so there'll be a new issue of Driving Sense going out to all our members and various members of the press. I'm going to attach this to it as well, so that people have got references that they can go
Yeah.
to.
Excellent.
So if you're not a member of the ABD, it's another good reason to join us to see
Absolutely.
some of the important and often comedic things that are going on out there.
Yeah. Well, with this government in place, you're not short of comedy material, are you?
Yeah, true.
Right. Okay. Moving to road safety. In a very retrograde step in terms of road safety. Apparently, the Met Police is looking at scrapping its Specialist Roads Policing Command on budget reasons, financial pressures. Now, the problem is that when you start looking at accident causation, and we've said this so many times, the vast majority of road accidents are caused by hazard perception, hazard response, hazard observation is the first thing, because if you're not watching, you're not going to observe anything. Observation, hazard perception, hazard response failures. And you need road users who are actually paying attention to what's going on the road, not looking out for speed cameras or fiddling with the stereo or all the other stuff that goes on in cars nowadays.
Yeah.
And taking the roads policing function out and replacing it with more basically electronic highwaymen with more cameras is not going to solve the problem. You need police officers out there, but you also need a road accident investigation and prevention branch that's actually investigating what causes accidents and confirming what I've just said, and also explaining that illegal speed is a very low percentage in terms of accident causation, 5% or less.
Yeah.
And when it's involved, highly illegal speed as a cause of accidents, it's invariably because those who are precipitating that, are driving at this very high speed, are drug and or alcohol impaired, and they don't respond to speed cameras or anything else because they either don't notice them or don't care about them. So we need, to have hands-on police presence dealing with those kind of people and getting them off the road.
Yeah.
So dispensing with road safety, specialist road safety commands is a crazy idea. And then, of course, we've got all these politicians weighing in, spurred on by the crazies like 20's Plenty, saying that we need 20 miles an hour everywhere in urban areas and now everywhere in rural areas to protect cyclists. Well, the problem with cyclists is that they are their own enemies. And during lockdown, when the only people who are covering large distances and motorized traffic was down dramatically, cycling went up, and so did cycling casualties. So, the more cycling that's allowed, the more cyclist casualties there'll be. So arguably what we should be doing is trying to discourage people from cycling. That's without getting into the problems of prostate cancer risk, which are about 6 times higher for male cyclists than for the rest of the population.
Really? Right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it out there if you go looking for it. Yes. Keen cyclists are up to 6 times higher incidence of aggressive prostate cancer than the general population. So that's another problem. But suggesting that we should have 20-mile-an-hour limits out in rural areas to protect cyclists, where a lot of the time they're almost absent anyway, is a huge economic cost that nobody seems to understand the idea of cost-benefit analysis. No. And they don't look at the huge economic cost of slowing everybody down to 20 miles an hour, which in urban areas increases the journey time of every length of journey up to 50% in a 30-mile-an-hour area. In a 60-mile-an-hour area, it doubles it. It's 200% higher. Because, traveling 60 miles at 20 miles an hour takes 3 hours. Traveling 60 miles at 60 miles an hour takes an hour.
And this is going to add extra costs to your shopping because trucks and hands on and you have to get around as quick. They'll need more.
It is lunacy on stilts, and there's no statistically significant accident rate evidence to support the proposition. So it's bonkers. It is completely mad. And incidentally, Thatcham, the borough of Thatcham have just had to throw out the idea of introducing 20-mile-an-hour limits because 3/4 of the residents of Thatcham said, we don't want this.
Yeah.
So democracy is actually working in Thatcham, and we need to find out how it was achieved in Thatcham to get rid of all these loonies who want 20-mile-an-hour everywhere and put back in speed limits which are sensibly set based on sound road safety principles, on the Solomon curve and on the 85th percentile principle. So you set the speed limit based on the speeds that road users are traveling at, and then you enforce based on what's the safest speed within that speed distribution.
Yeah.
And that's how it was always done. It's not done anymore because we've got so many crazy environmentalists who've perverted road safety and turned it into a way of just suppressing road users.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving swiftly on. There's one of the interesting things I picked up. There was a London Underground whistleblower who was unfairly dismissed because he raised concerns about exposure on the tube to asbestos and various transition metals, chromium, tungsten, all sorts of other things. And apparently tube air quality levels, and we've covered this before, are very, very much worse than outdoor urban air quality levels. And this guy has actually won the tribunal for unfair dismissal and basically, confirmed that the air quality on the tube is a health risk, much a bigger health risk than urban air quality. So basically, Mayor Khan needs pulling over the coals for lying to people and saying urban air quality in London is poor because it's amongst the best in the world. It's in the top quartile of air quality, and the worst air quality is in really deprived areas, Delhi and places like that, where they don't have clean vehicles and clean energy generation technology like we've got here in the UK, and their air quality is dreadful, similar to what's on the tube, actually.
Very similar, yeah.
Yeah.
I must admit, every time I've used the tube, which isn't that frequently, but every time I've gone, you can taste the air.
And if you've blown your nose afterwards, you see all this black stuff that you've actually breathed in the vicinity of the tube.
Yeah, you have become a filter. Yeah.
An unwilling filter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What else did I want to? Yes, fuel taxation. Italy's Premier Giorgia Meloni is cutting fuel tax to help people with the temporary problems with fuel prices arising from the situation in the Persian Gulf, whereas our government just sits and smugly pockets 55 to 60% of the cost of the fuel, and then refuses to help in any way with the tax burden that represents, and just seems to be piling stuff on top with egregious charges for parking and air quality zones that are, again, based on obtaining money by false pretenses, because in the vast majority of cases, these ULEZ zones already had compliant air before the ULEZ was actually put in place.
Yeah.
So again, that's an area where we need to look at crowdfunding to challenge them and force them to take these things out, because they're obtaining money under false pretenses.
Yeah. A bit like the French.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for a different cause, obviously.
Yeah.
Moving on to page 7. Oh, we're cracking on now. How are we doing for time, George?
Oh, well, we're looking at about another 20 minutes.
Okay, all right, good. One of the other big concerns, thanks to our the obsession of the politicians with net zero, is that our grid is becoming, I quote, an accident waiting to happen. And even Professor Sir Dieter Helm, who is an environmental correspondent, he's an Oxford professor who commentates on environment and energy issues. And he has said that NESO, which is the organisation that's supposed to be hands-off from government, and yet the Secretary of State for Energy actually controls NESO. Right. Okay. So there's conflict of interest in there already. even Dieter Helm has said that the NESO's operating practices need to be scrutinised by an objective third-party governing body, which should be Ofgem, is it? Ofgem, I think it is. But Ofgem is doing,
right. Yeah, that sounds
Ofgem are doing nothing about this, but all sorts of commentators, Dieter Helm, Catherine Porter, David Turver, have all piled in and basically said they've allowed the grid to operate outside of its safe operating zone on a number of occasions for extended periods, and only stop the thing from crashing by actually not exporting power to France, I think it was, through the interconnector to keep our grid supported. Otherwise, it would have crashed and we would have had blackouts, even in the height of summer. And we're in the crazy situation that this is going to be a risk all the time as we keep putting more and more renewables into the system that can't actually handle it. And the situation in Scotland, where they've only got two proper energy generation sources, one is nuclear and one's conventional, and I keep forgetting the name of them. Catherine Porter has reported on her website it'll come back to me later, but on Catherine Porter's website, I can't remember, but anyway, she's reported that basically Scotland is first in line. If we're going to get power cuts, it'll be the Scottish, because they're trying to shove all this renewable power into a system that cannot convert and control enough of this, and then we're also paying people on wind farms and solar arrays to curtail, right? So we're paying them to not generate electricity, and then paying to generate electricity too much sometimes. The whole thing's a disaster and needs to be completely scrapped and reconfigured, because we're basically paying people for doing nothing. It's bonkers. It's a bit like, the immigrant situation. We're paying people that we don't want to come into the country and live here and stay in 4-star hotels. Great, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, really clever, really clever. Yeah. Have they stated why they've chosen Scotland to be the first to suffer?
Well, because there's only got two conventional generating sites, and both of those are coming towards the end of their lives. The nuclear one, that might be Dounreay, but I'm not sure. And there's also another one close to the Scottish borders in the Berwick-on-Tweed area, but that's a conventional combined cycle gas turbine. But again, it needs upgrades. And the problem is governments have done nothing about upgrading these older CCGT sites, so they've had no work done on them for 30 years or so, and there's an 8-year waiting list for new turbines. Right? So even if we wanted to do something now, it would be certainly 5 to 8 years. Now I think there are moves to increase the production of gas turbines for power stations because of that very problem. But we're not doing anything because, of course, we don't want to use gas. We want to use everything renewable and unreliable and grid destroying. Anyway, yes, moving swiftly on. Sorry?
Very, very frustrating.
It is more than frustrating. It's completely and utterly insane. That's the only way to describe it. I'm looking for the.
Where are we now?
I can't find the one I was looking for. We are about on page 8, I think. Bottom of page 7, actually. This thing that I was mentioning about, wind power, the wind farm power glut adds about $1 billion a year to household energy bills through curtailment, as I was explaining. Curtailment, which means we're paying renewable energy producers not to produce, adds about $1 billion per annum in additional costs. So we should curtail the curtailment costs simply. File that whole idea in the bin, because it would save us £1 billion. If they're generating too much power, that's their problem, not ours.
Exactly. Yeah, they need to find a solution to that.
Yeah, and the problem is there isn't one at the moment because battery technology can't store that much power. We haven't got enough batteries, and even if there were, we would basically have to carpet the entire country with batteries virtually to store that power.
I think one of the websites that you were trying to remember earlier, would that have been whatlogic.com?
That's it, whatlogic.com it is.
Yeah.
It's
And that's what
excellent website, Catherine Porter's website.
That's right. And that's what spelled WATT.
Yes, -logic.com.
Yeah, that's it.
Underneath that, the reference about wind power curtailment we just mentioned, the London stock market is going to lose a £5.7 billion energy giant because it's going to be taken over by an American equity capital company, I think it is, and they will no longer list on the UK stock exchange. So there's more revenue that's departing and going to relocate out of the country because of our insane energy policies. Okay, I mentioned the battery. There's a reference on page 8 of our digest. The battery bubble. Batteries won't save the grid. Battery storage has long been touted as a solution to wind and solar intermittency, but the fact is it's an economic energy failure. It just costs far too much. We don't have the resources. We don't have the minerals and the battery production capabilities to make that much battery storage. And what we have would, I think it's one of the Australian states, Victoria, I think it was, they built, that's the reference, the battery bubble on Energy Bad Boys. Energy Bad Boys, that's all one word, lowercase, .substack.com. Go and interrogate that website. Basically, I was talking about, Australia. They put in a huge amount of battery storage and found that they could store, I think it was about 15 minutes of storage. When, if the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, it doesn't just go off for 15 minutes. You're looking at, like night, which is at 12 hours. There's just no conventional available storage technology to store that much power. Okay. And there's a reference there further down to Lazard's 2026. Lazard is an energy narrative company almost. They report on energy issues, and even they are now admitting that renewable power is not cheaper than conventional, as Mr. Billy Mand or Milliband or Millibrain or whatever he was called was wont to suggest. Renewables are more expensive when you factor in all the subsidies and the curtailment costs and the grid changes and the construction and the copper and all the other minerals, neodymium and everything else. Way, way more expensive than gas.
Yeah.
Well, that's been the government is basically lying.
Yeah. And if you become reliant on, say we all switched over to EV as a means of getting from A to B, the rare earth minerals that are, they're not going to last forever, but also they're dotted around far away from here.
And
they're be held ransom. Yeah.
By China.
Yeah.
By China. And once you've concentrated them and put them into a battery, you can't recycle them. Nobody has got a viable battery recycling technology at the moment. So that they are then locked into the local area, and over a period of time they will leach out into local watercourses and things, because these batteries are once they're spent, they're sticking them in landfill, like they're putting wind turbine blades in landfill, mixed in with asbestos. Somebody's found out as well that there's asbestos being used to reinforce turbine blades. Whose insane idea was that? Anyway, yes. So the whole thing is a complete and utter disaster from an environmental and from a cost point of view. Just dreadful, pouring money down a black hole.
Yeah, totally.
What else do we want to cover? How are we doing? We're on page 9.
Got about another 5-7 minutes, something like that.
So on the bottom of page 9, the European Union is still not even doubling down, but tripling down on net zero and continuing to prioritize carbon emissions reduction targets over reliable power, affordability, and practical engineering, because all this has done is offshore all of our industry to China and other places. I mean, look what's happening to BMW, Volkswagen. They're all shedding jobs hand over fist now, closing factories down, moving this production facilities to China and Southeast Asia, South Korea, and places like that. Meanwhile, our industry's flushing down the toilet pan, and we're losing jobs, expertise, and tax revenue.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect storm. Only an idiot would adopt these kind of policies, and it's clear the government.
Hello. Have we lost you?
Oh no,
you're back. No, you're back. You're back.
Oh, thank heaven for that. Good. So yeah, that reference is from David Blackmon's website, Blackmon, BLACKMON.substack.com. Energy Realities podcast, tripling down on net zero. You can find that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then following on from that, and this is the other thing is, almost every opinion poll that's canvassed even by the IPCC, asking people all over the world, where do they put climate change in terms of a hierarchy of needs? And basically, climate change is always at the bottom.
Right.
Nobody cares outside of the IPCC and it's sort of CAG's supporters, climate alarmism, CADS, climate alarmism derangement syndrome, CADS.
And that's what really bothers me about this country, how much out there is just out there. It really is completely mental that we are going down this path.
These people are deranged. They need mental health counselling and therapy, because they're not living on, they're living on planet Zog, I'm afraid.
They are.
And the problem is, for billions of people living in developing countries, their biggest challenge is poverty, getting access to reliable energy, transportation, clean water, healthcare, education, and economic opportunity. And these nut job climate crazies are denying them the opportunity to obtain that and to get up the energy and wealth ladder, energy intensity and wealth ladder. Because all the poor countries are down in the bottom left, and we used to be at the top right, but we're gradually sliding backwards down towards the bottom left. And they will meet us on the way up and overtake us, as China has done, because of our current insane energy policies.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Right. What else have we got here? Oh, interesting. The International Criminal Court, which I would actually describe as a criminal organization, even Venezuela's decided to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, citing extreme bias. And certainly some of their decisions around stuff like the Chagos Islands and whatnot definitely demonstrates and defines extreme bias, extreme Marxo-fascist bias, I'd go as far as to say, which is probably why our current government supports everything they do. And America's State Department has hailed Venezuela's decision to rail against the corrupt and worthless ICC. Couldn't have put it better myself. Well done, Donald.
Good old Donald.
And the US further down, I think we're almost on the last page. Further down, the US has walked out of the UN meeting. They refused to toe the UN line and walked out of a meeting after France claimed the UN was no longer a beacon of human rights. At the time that the French representative was standing alongside the Russian and North Korean representatives, two fine, upstanding examples of democratic civilization or democratic regimes. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and so Donald orders his men to walk out, and we are, and basically the reason they were complaining about the US regime is because they deport illegal migrants.
Yeah.
Right. And the UK is so weak it can't stand against this unelected Marxo-fascist organization, and we are being forced to fund them. The US is basically raising the metaphorical single finger to the UN, and long may it last.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally understood. Yep.
Exactly. Well done, Donald.
Yeah.
Give him the finger.
We've probably got time for one more, Brian.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think I've got two more actually. One is on communism, and it's covered in the Epoch Times. Again, the website is the Epoch EPOCH Times TIME www.theepochtimes.com. And then it's /opinion /communism it's back 6068745. And basically, if you go on the Epoch Times website and Google communism, it's back.
You'd find it, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and basically it never went away. All that happened is it sort of pulled on a sharp, smartly tailored suit, got behind all grievance politics, transgenderism and all these stupid other things that we're being assailed with, all these other nonsense policies.
Yeah.
And of course the environment, and they weaponized it to destroy our society. And until we actually call these people out, ridicule, and basically disempower them, we're in big trouble.
Yeah. And finally, at the bottom of the level,
it's an American reference on California, and they've it's I forget the name of the area. I think it's called the Rays area or something of California. Rays Point area. Point Rays is the area, and the Environmental Protection Agency has forced all of the indigenous farmers that farm that area to basically move out, cut food production, displacing loads of workers. Loads of companies have gone bust, and it's really been cited as an example that if this is what conservation requires us to do, we're better off without it, because it's actually a recipe for the destruction of food production, the displacement of workers off the land to jobs that don't exist anywhere else, and it compromises food security, compromises economic security. And again, it's another example of Marxo-fascism in action.
Yeah.
Okay. There
so
is.
That is going to go out with our regular newsletter to all our email addresses. So if you're a member already, you will receive that. If you're not a member, but you've heard some stuff there that you'd like to read more upon, consider becoming a member at abd.org.uk. It's £30 for the whole year, or £45 if you want the printed version of Driving Sense sent out to you 4 times a year as well. But we're campaigning on your behalf to keep you on the road. To
keep you in your car and allowed to travel where you want to go, with a road safety regime that makes common sense and casualty reduction the priority, and to allow you to go and park and drive where you want without unnecessary, unrealistic restrictions.
And increasingly, it's become more about net zero. As well. It's about the fight against that.
Yeah, it's a fight for liberty and freedom of mobility, freedom of association, freedom of expression, and almost freedom of thought.
Yeah.
The other thing that we must do is ask you to subscribe to unprecedented.tv, which is our host for this program. a very good source of information run by our good friend Lembit Opik. Please subscribe to that as well and keep watching the broadcasts.
Yeah, and keep liking the videos and commenting on them.
And empty the Kool-Aid down the toilet.
And on that note, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.